Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask y'all something right quick. Have you ever met somebody who's got a PhD in making other folks feel small? Somebody who's always stirring up drama, controlling the room, manipulating like it's their full-time job? Oh, come on now. Don't look around the room. Just blink if you've ever had to deal with someone like that. If you've ever tangled with a narcissist, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like every single day is a tug of war for your peace of mind. But let me tell you something, you are not powerless. You have the God-given ability to flip that script. And today I'm gonna give you 6 moves, 6 powerful tools that'll leave that narcissist scratching their head, wondering where all their power went. Now, let's start with this. A narcissist craves attention, not wants craves. It's like oxygen to them. They need it like a plant needs sunlight, like fish need water. Without it, their world starts crumbling. They're always trying to be the center of the universe, the star of every story. But here's where God works, because sometimes the very thing that someone depends on is the very thing that can bring them down. Their need for attention is also their Achilles heel. And when you stop feeding them that attention, when you ignore them, baby, you're not just taking the high road, you're snatching the control right out of their hands. Now hold up, because this part right here is crucial. Silence is power. Ignoring a narcissist isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're saying, I'm no longer part of this toxic play you've written. I'm stepping off your stage. They won't like it. Oh, believe me, they'll turn it up. They'll press every button you got. They might lash out, guilt trip you, or act like the victim to pull you back in. But that's when your faith gets tested. That's when you got to stand firm and say, God didn't bring me this far just to have me stuck in this mess. He gave me strength for a reason. Let me tell you all something. A narcissist's power is in your reaction. They're like fire, and your energy is the fuel. But when you stop reacting, when you stop bracking, when you step back and prey on it, you're pulling the oxygen out of their flame. They'll fight to keep it burning, but over time, that fire will die out. And let's get real. This ain't about being cruel. This ain't about getting back at them. This is about self-preservation. God didn't put you on this earth to be anyone's punching bag. He said in the Word, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, Psalm 139:14. That means you're worth protecting. That means it's okay to set boundaries, even with folks who try to make you feel guilty for doing it. Let me make this plain. Ignoring a narcissist isn't easy. They know your triggers. They know how to push you and know how to push you. And if you've been tangled up with one for a long time, you might have been conditioned to react. But the moment you choose to rise above, you're reclaiming your peace, your power, and your purpose. This ain't just about them. This is about you. When you refuse to engage, you're sending a message. I am not defined by your approval. I am not moved by your manipulation. My worth comes from God, not from your games. So here's what I'm saying. Stick with it. Be patient, be consistent, and don't waver. Ignoring someone doesn't mean you're running away. It means you're walking into freedom. And let me tell you, freedom feels good because it's not just freedom from them. It's freedom for you to focus on the life God has for you. Over time, you'll notice a change, not just in how they act, but in who you are. You'll stand taller, think clearer, and feel stronger. And that, my friends, is what it means to walk in the fullness of God's love and protection. So keep stepping, keep praying, and keep reclaiming your peace. God's got you, and He'll never let you down. You ever been in a place where you're walking on eggshells? Like you can't even breathe right because you don't know what's gonna set somebody off. That ain't no way to live, my friend. But let me tell you something, you don't have to live like that. When you reclaim your power, when you let go of their chaos, you find something money can't buy, freedom. That's right, the kind of freedom where you can sleep at night, where your peace ain't disturbed, where your heart ain't weighed down. That's the kind of freedom God wants for you because He didn't create you to live in chains, emotional or otherwise. Now, next time somebody tries to bait you into their drama, demands your attention, or messes with your emotions, I want you to remember this: your silence is your strength. In a world where they're trying to control you, your indifference is the key to their undoing. You ain't ignoring them out of spite. You're doing it because you respect yourself too much to engage. And here's the truth: your energy is too precious to waste on folks who don't deserve it. God didn't give you this one life to pour into people who only drain you. Proverbs 4:23 says, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That means you gotta protect your peace, your joy, and your energy because it's all tied to your purpose. Now let's talk boundaries. Boundaries, y'all, are your armor. They're like a shield God gives you to protect your mind and heart from manipulation, control, and all the mess people bring into your life. When you set boundaries, you're saying, this is where I stand and you can't cross this line. Now, narcissists, oh, they hate boundaries. Boundaries make them mad because they challenge their power. They're used to breaking folks down, pushing their limits, and taking over. But when you set a boundary, you're telling them no more. This is my life, and you don't run it. Listen to me. Boundaries aren't easy. Narcissists will fight back. They'll test you, accuse you, and twist things to make you feel guilty. They'll play the victim like they just won an Oscar. But all that's a distraction. Don't fall for it. Stand firm. Stand tall. Know that God's got your back because He didn't give you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. The first step to setting boundaries is knowing what you will and won't tolerate. Take some time to reflect. What drains you? What crosses the line? Be specific. Don't leave it vague because vague boundaries are like cracked armor. They don't protect you. When you're clear, it's like saying, this is my line and it's not moving. The second step is communicating your boundaries. Now I know this part can feel tough because it feels confrontational. But listen, you ain't asking for permission. You're making a declaration. You're not saying, could you please not do this? You're saying, here's what I will no longer accept. Use simple, firm language. For example, don't say, I'd prefer if you didn't yell at me. Say, if you yell, this conversation is over. Period. End of story. They'll push back, but consistency is your power. If you set a boundary but don't enforce it, you're showing them that your lines can be crossed. And let me tell you something, narcissists love to cross lines. Enforcing your boundaries isn't about punishing them. It's about protecting yourself. It's about honoring the worth God has given you. Psalm 139:14 says, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That means you are worth protecting, worth respecting, worth honoring. When you stick to your boundaries, you're not just standing up to them, you're standing up for yourself. And look, let me be real with you. A narcissist probably won't respect your boundaries. They'll try to guilt you, undermine you, or manipulate you. But their reaction ain't your responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect your peace and honor the person God created you to be. Boundaries aren't about changing them. They're about changing you. They're about creating a space where you can live your life without losing yourself in their chaos. For those of you who have to deal with a narcissist regularly, maybe at work or in co-parenting, boundaries are your lifeline. They help you decide how and when to engage so you're not pulled into their toxic world. Over time, you'll notice a shift, not necessarily in them, but in you. Boundaries remind you of your worth. They remind you that your time, your energy, and your peace are too valuable to give away freely. And while a narcissist may never appreciate your boundaries, that's not the point. The point is that you appreciate yourself enough to set them. The point is that you honor the life God has given you enough to protect it. So stand tall, my friends. Refuse manipulation. Prioritize your well-being. And remember, boundaries aren't a wall. They're a doorway to the life God intended for you. Your peace, your strength, your freedom, that's the foundation. And let me tell you something, y'all. The moment you build on that foundation, you realize something powerful. The control you thought they had over you, it wasn't ever theirs. It was always yours. Now let's call this out for what it is: manipulation. That's the narcissist's favorite tool, their weapon of choice. They use it to dominate, confuse, and make you feel small. But when you start recognizing it and calling it out, you strip away their power. It's like shining a light in a dark corner. They can't hide anymore. Let me tell you though, this ain't about starting fights or trying to prove you're right. That's playing their game, and they're pros at it. This is about exposing the truth. It's about calling their tactics what they are: calculated attempts to control and belittle. Now let's break it down. Narcissists are slick with it, y'all. They use gaslighting, guilt, tripping, playing the victim. Oh, they'll even turn on the charm when it suits them. They count on folks being too polite, too unsure, or too scared to call them out. And let me tell you, when you stay silent, you're giving them room to keep doing what they do. But when you name it, when you say, "I see what you're doing," oh, you throw a wrench in their whole plan. It forces them to confront the truth, and y'all know the truth makes people uncomfortable, especially a narcissist. The first step to calling out manipulation is to recognize it. Pay attention to patterns. Are they always blaming you, even when it's their fault? Do they exaggerate their emotions to get sympathy or make you comply? Are they twisting your words to make you feel guilty? Those are red flags. Awareness is your weapon. The more you understand their tactics, the better equipped you are to confront them. When you do call them out, listen closely. Clarity and calmness are key. Narcissists love an emotional reaction. That's fuel for their fire, so don't come at them angry or frustrated. That's just giving them more to twist. Stick to the facts. Keep your tone steady. Say something like, "I see you're trying to make me feel guilty for saying no. I don't appreciate that." It's direct, but it's not confrontational. You're naming the behavior without giving them anything to use against you. Now listen, y'all, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. They'll push back. Narcissists don't like being called out. They'll accuse you of being oversensitive, misinterpreting their actions, or get this, being manipulative yourself. Don't take the bait. Don't get drawn to a debate. Stand firm. The goal isn't to make them admit to anything. Let's be real, they probably won't. The goal is to set a boundary and let them know you see through their games. You're sending a message: I'm not playing along anymore. Calling out manipulation isn't just about stopping it in the moment. It's about changing the dynamic. When you name their tactics, you're stepping out of the role they've assigned you. You're no longer their pawn, and that makes them uncomfortable. They might back off for a while, try a new tactic, or even escalate to regain control. But you stay consistent. Consistency is power. Address manipulation every time it really matters. And over time, you'll notice something incredible. Their ability to affect you will shrink. That's because you're shifting the balance. You're taking back the power they tried to steal. But let me give you some real wisdom right here. Pick your battles. You don't need to engage every time they act out. Some situations just aren't worth the energy, especially if it's a minor issue or if you're dealing with someone particularly volatile. The key is to focus on the patterns that hurt your peace the most. And through all of this, remember what God says in Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. You ain't alone in this fight. God's got your back. He's given you the strength to stand tall, to speak truth, and to protect your peace. At the end of the day, this isn't just about them. It's about you. It's about choosing freedom over fear, strength over silence, and truth over manipulation. So keep standing firm. Keep guarding your foundation. And keep remembering that the power was always yours because the one who gave it to you never left your side. This ain't about changing the narcissist because let's keep it real. They're not likely to change. And manipulation, it's so baked into their personality. It's like trying to separate sugar from cool. But this is what you can do. You can change how you interact with them by recognizing and naming their tactics. You remove the confusion they've been planting in your mind. You stop second guessing yourself, and instead you trust your God-given intuition. That right there is power, y'all. It's the first step to taking control of your life and breaking free from their influence. And let me tell you what happens when you call them out. Oh, it messes with them. They may never admit it, but when you confront a narcissist, you disrupt their whole sense of control. It shakes that image they've built of being untouchable, superior, and always one step ahead. And over time, they might just move on to someone who hasn't figured them out yet, leaving you with a whole lot more peace. But let me make one thing clear. This ain't about fighting fire with fire. We don't play their game. We don't stoop to their level. This is about standing in your truth. It's about saying, I see you. I know what you're trying to do. And I won't let her trying to do, and I won't let it work. You're not seeking validation. You're not waiting on an apology. You're reclaiming your power and protecting your heart. Now, let's be real. It takes courage to do this. It's not easy to confront manipulation, especially if you've been dealing with it for a long time. But every time you call it out, you're reminding yourself of your worth. You're saying, I matter enough to stop this cycle. And that's a victory right there. Here's the next move, emotional detachment. Let me tell you, this is one of the most powerful things you can do. Narcissists live for emotional reactions. They feed off your emotional reactions. They feed off your anger, your frustration, your sadness. They'll even use your joy if it suits them. But when you stay emotionally detached, it's like you shut off the power to their house. They can't light up without your energy. Now, emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about life. It doesn't mean you're cold or indifferent. What it means is you build a protective barrier around your emotions. You say, you can't control how I feel anymore. You don't get to dictate my peace. How do you do this? You start by shifting your focus inward. See, narcissists are pros at pulling all the attention to themselves. They want you to orbit their world. But when you stop giving them that power, when you focus on your emotional health instead of their games, you start breaking free. You also gotta recognize this. You can't control them. You can't make them see your perspective. You can't make them change. That's between them change. That's between them and God, not you. Emotional detachment means accepting that their behavior says more about them than it does about you. Once you get that deep in your spirit, their words and actions lose their sting. Boundaries are a big part of this, both external and internal. External boundaries are about how others treat you. Internal boundaries, those are about how you let yourself react. For example, if a narcissist says something cruel, an internal boundary might be telling yourself, this ain't about me. Their words are about control, not truth. By setting these guardrails, you keep your emotions steady no matter how hard they push. Now listen, this takes practice. Narcissists are experts at triggering emotions. They'll catch you off guard with their words or actions. But mindfulness can help. Mindfulness is staying present, pausing before you react, and choosing how to respond. It's saying, I see what you're doing, but I'm not stepping into that mess. Simple techniques like deep breathing, a quick prayer, or even stepping away for a moment can help you stay calm and centered. Psalm 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. Sometimes, y'all, you just need that stillness to remind yourself of who's really in control of your life. And here's the hardest part, resisting the urge to engage. Oh, I know that's tough. They'll try to pull you in. They'll poke, prod, and push every button you've got. But engaging is giving them what they want. Emotional detachment is saying, I refuse to play this game. Let me leave you with this. Emotional detachment isn't about turning your back on life. It's about standing in your strength and saying, God gave me this peace and I'm not letting you take it. It's about protecting your joy, your energy, and your purpose. And when you do that, you'll find that the storms they try to create don't reach your foundation. Stay strong, stay mindful, and keep peace, y'all. You've got the power. You always did. Narcissists are masters of baiting you into arguments, guilt trips, or emotional displays. They know exactly which buttons to push to get a reaction, and for a long time, you might have felt like you had no choice but to play along. But let me tell you something. You don't have to play that game anymore. Emotional detachment is your key to freedom. It's about recognizing their tactics and refusing to give them the reaction they're after. It's not about ignoring unacceptable behavior. It's about responding with calmness and confidence instead of letting them pull you into their chaos. When you detach emotionally, you unsettle the narcissist. They rely on your emotional investment to maintain control and feed their ego. When you stop reacting, you take that power away from them. And sure, at first, they might escalate their efforts. They might push harder, say crueler things, or even try to guilt, trip you into engaging. But if you stay consistent, if you stand firm, they'll eventually realize their tactics no longer work. Emotional detachment doesn't just protect you. It empowers you to see their behavior for what it truly is, manipulation, not truth. When you're caught up in the emotions of it all, their words can feel deeply personal, leaving you questioning your worth and your decisions. But when you detach, you gain clarity. You start to see that their behavior reflects their own insecurities, fears, and need for control, not anything about your value as a person. This is a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. Emotional detachment takes time and practice. You'll need to unlearn old patterns of reacting and build new habits of staying calm and centered. But every time you stay composed during a situation that would have upset you before, that's a victory. Each step you take toward detachment strengthens your emotional resilience and weakens their influence over you. And as you continue, you reclaim your power. You remind yourself that your feelings, your reactions, and your energy belong to you, not to someone who seeks to manipulate or control them. That's the beginning of freedom. That's when you start living your life on your terms. Part of reclaiming your power is establishing firm boundaries. Boundaries are not just rules you set for other people. They are commitments you make to yourself about what you will and won't tolerate. Narcissists hate boundaries because boundaries are walls they can't easily climb. They thrive on invading your space, whether emotionally, mentally, or even physically. But boundaries are one of the most effective ways to limit their control and protect yourself. Without boundaries, they'll take as much as you allow. Your time, your energy, your peace, until there's nothing left. Setting boundaries isn't selfish or rude. It's an act of self-preservation. It's a declaration that your well-being matters. To set boundaries, you need clarity. You have to define what you're willing to accept and what you're not. And you have to be specific. Vague boundaries won't cut it. If a narcissist tends to call you at all hours to unload their problems, a clear boundary might sound like this. I'm available to talk between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m., but I won't be answering calls outside of that time. The clearer you are, the less room there is for manipulation or misinterpretation. Communicate your boundaries calmly and confidently. Narcissists will often test you to see if you'll waver or feel guilty. They might accuse you of being selfish or unreasonable, but don't take the bait. Stand firm and remind yourself that boundaries aren't about them. They're about you and what you need to maintain your peace. But here's the thing about boundaries. They're meaningless without enforcement. A boundary without follow-through is like locking your door, but leaving it wide open. When a narcissist inevitably tests your limits, you must respond with consistent consequences. If you've set a boundary about not engaging in arguments and they try to provoke you, disengage. If you've established limits on your time, don't feel pressured to bend them to accommodate their demands. Consistency is key. Over time, they'll learn that pushing your boundaries is futile. Be prepared for pushback. Narcissists don't like losing control, and boundaries challenge their sense of dominance. They may react with anger, defensiveness, or even escalate their behavior to break down your resolve. But their reaction is not your responsibility. Their discomfort with not being in control is their problem to manage, not yours. Remember, you're not responsible for their feelings or how they respond to your boundaries. Narcissists love to use guilt as a weapon. They'll try to make you feel like setting boundaries is an act of rejection or abandonment, but it's not. You're not rejecting them. You're protecting yourself and their inability to respect your limits. That's their issue, not yours. Boundaries are a commitment to your well-being. They're a way of saying, I value my peace and my energy too much to let you take it from me. They're not just walls to keep people out. They're a foundation for your freedom. And when you enforce those boundaries, you're reclaiming your life. You're telling the narcissist, you don't have the power to dictate how I feel or live anymore. That, more than anything else, is the start of true freedom. There comes a point when boundaries need to go beyond addressing individual behaviors. Sometimes you've got to make the hard decision to limit or even cut off contact altogether. Let me tell you, walking away can be one of the toughest boundaries to set. It takes courage to look at someone and say, I'm choosing my peace over your chaos, but it's also one of the most empowering decisions you'll ever make. When you walk away, you send a clear message. My well-being matters more than your need for control or attention. Setting boundaries isn't just about keeping the narcissist at bay. It's about creating a safe, healthy space for you to thrive. Take some time to reflect on where your boundaries have been weak or even non-existent in the past. Think about how strengthening them could improve your emotional and mental health. Surround yourself with supportive people who respect your boundaries, who encourage your growth, and who remind you of your worth. Over time, you'll notice that maintaining boundaries shifts the entire dynamic. The narcissist might test your limits less frequently as they start to realize their old tricks no longer work. But the real change happens in you. You'll feel more confident, more empowered and more in control of your life. Boundaries aren't just about keeping someone out. They're about letting yourself in. They're about prioritizing your needs and building a life where you're no longer at the mercy of someone else's manipulation or demands. Boundaries are acts of self-respect. They're your way of saying, my peace, my time, and my well-being are non-negotiable. When you enforce them, you take a stand for your worth. You reclaim your power and remind yourself that you have the right to live without constant intrusion or manipulation. And in doing so, you create space for the things that truly matter. You're created space for the things that truly matter. Your kratom. One of the most impactful actions you can take is choosing not to feed the narcissist's ego. All y'all know what I'm talking about. That ego. It's like a hungry beast that's never satisfied. It constantly demands attention, validation, and admiration just to survive. Narcissists will go to great lengths to make sure they stay the center of attention. But when you stop feeding that ego, you disrupt their whole game. You leave them frustrated, disarmed, and scrambling. Here's how they operate. Narcissists thrive on flattery and recognition. They exaggerate their achievements, dominate conversations, and fish for praise. But when you deliberately choose not to engage in that game, you deny them the supply they crave. Now, this doesn't mean being rude or confrontational. It means choosing not to participate in their endless quest for validation. Your silence or neutrality speaks louder than any argument. It shows them, clear as day, that you're not a source of their fuel. Let me give you an example. When they start boasting about some minor accomplishment, instead of pouring on the praise they're expecting, you stay neutral. Say something like, "That's interesting," and move on. It's subtle, but it sends a powerful message. You're not reinforcing their need for constant validation, and you're not giving them the attention they crave. Another thing, avoid arguments or confrontations that revolve around their need to be right. Narcissists love to argue because it feeds their ego. They want the last word. They want the last word. They want to be the smartest person in the room. But when you refuse to engage, when you let them have their so-called victory without investing your energy, you take away their power. Your refusal to argue leaves them with nothing to feed on. And let's not forget their love of drama. Narcissists thrive on creating chaos because it keeps the spotlight on them. They'll push buttons, provoke reactions, and stir up tension just to make sure all eyes are on them. But when you stay calm, when you refuse to react, you rob them of the emotional response they're seeking. Now, don't get it twisted. Staying calm doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior. It means addressing it constructively and calmly without feeding into their theatrics. You also have to protect your achievements. Narcissists often feel threatened by other people's success. They'll try to minimize, dismiss, or even take credit for your accomplishments. Don't let them steal your shine. Celebrate your wins and stand firm in your worth. Your success is yours. It doesn't need their validation, and it certainly doesn't belong to them. At the end of the day, choosing not to fuel a narcissist's ego, setting firm boundaries, and walking away when necessary are all ways of reclaiming your life. It's about standing tall, prioritizing your peace, and living free from manipulation and control. And let me tell you something, y'all. When you do this, you're not just protecting your peace. You're stepping into the life God intended for you. A life where you're happy, growing, and free. When you stop seeking a narcissist's approval or acknowledgement for your successes, you take away their ability to control the narrative. Celebrate your victories independently or with people who genuinely support you rather than looking for validation from someone who will only use it against you. This isn't about shutting people out. It's about surrounding yourself with those who lift you up. It's about surrounding yourself with those who lift you up instead of dragging you down. Another powerful way to starve a narcissist's ego is by refusing to play the role they assign you. See, narcissists don't see people as individuals. To them, you're either the admirer, the helper, or the scapegoat, whatever serves their needs. But let me tell you something. You are nobody's role to fill. When you step out of those roles and assert your independence, you challenge their entire sense of control. And yes, they'll resist. They'll try every trick in the book to pull you back into the role they've written for you. But if you stand firm in your identity, if you declare, "This is who I am, and I won't be reduced to what you want me to be," you take away their power. Boundaries are your shield in this battle. By limiting how much time, energy, and attention you give a narcissist, you flip the script. A narcissist who's used to dominating your life won't know what to do when they realize you're no longer their reliable source of ego fuel. Consistency is everything, y'all. You've got to stick to those boundaries even when they try to manipulate or guilt you into breaking them. And trust me, they will try. When you stop feeding a narcissist's ego, they're going to react. Oh, believe me, it's coming. They'll escalate their behavior, becoming more demanding, manipulative, or even aggressive. That's what they call a narcissistic rage or narcissistic injury. It's their bruised ego lashing out, desperate to regain control. Recognize it for what it is, their fear of losing power. And here's the key, their reaction is not your responsibility. Your focus has to stay on protecting your peace, your well-being, and your energy. Refusing to feed a narcissist's ego isn't just a challenge. It's an act of empowerment. When you starve their need for attention and validation, you shift the power dynamic. You take back control of your time, your emotions, and your self-worth. It's not about playing games or trying to win. It's about stepping out of their cycle entirely. Over time, their attempts to manipulate, provoke, or dominate you will lose their sting. They'll see that their tactics no longer work, and their grip on you will weaken. And here's the beauty of it. When you stop being consumed by their needs and demands, you create space for yourself. Space to heal, space to grow, and space to grow, and space to focus on what truly matters. You'll build healthier relationships, chase your goals, and strengthen your sense of self. You'll start to see the narcissist for who they really are, not the all-powerful figure they project, but a person whose fragile ego depends on others to survive. And in that moment, you'll realize something liberating. They don't hold the power. You do. Dealing with a narcissist requires strategy, self-awareness, and unshakable strength. But here's what I need you to hear. You've got what it takes. God gave you the tools to rise above this. By understanding their triggers, staying calm in their chaos, withholding the validation they crave, and setting firm boundaries, you protect your peace and reclaim your life. This isn't about revenge or stooping to their level. It's about rising above. It's about building a space where their manipulation has no place, where you are free to live in the strength and clarity God intended for you. Every step you take toward disengagement and self-empowerment weakens their influence over your life. And as you continue to choose clarity, consistency, and conviction, you send a clear message. You send a clear message. Your games don't work here anymore. You're no longer under their thumb. You're standing tall, walking in freedom, and living with a peace that no narcissist can ever take away.